We can see if she can hear you.
Can you hear me now, Becker?
Perfectly.
Perfectly.
Yeah, perfectly.
Hear me across here. Okay,
Right.
so if they can hear me, then the people at
I
home,
could hear everybody speaking, yes.
that's fine then. You
Okay.
just have to not use each, you know, you're gonna be. So, maybe he has muted back there. And George, just turn your computer off. Don't even give it.
Right. George doesn't even need to need it.
Turn them off. Yep, turn them off. Yeah.
And then Jordan, to make things more complicated, I need to be able to share my screen. And it says that it's disabled in Zoom. In. I'm in.
I can see your screen.
Yay.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right.
Good.
As good as it's going to be, Mr. Controller.
Okay, Dr. Ruth. Call the meeting to order, the work session of February 9th. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Mrs. Rosado.
George Andrew,
Present.
Becca Baird,
Present.
Ann Petrillo. Present. Mike Petrillo,
Present.
Jason Goldstein,
Present.
Nick Hartsock,
Present.
Debbie Phillips. Present. Nikki Schreiner,
Present.
and Linda Floyd. Present. Nine present.
Thank you. And welcome to all of our guests. Please be sure, if you haven't done so, at some point you sign the paper outside, so we have a record of who was at our meeting. And I'm going to turn it over with that to Dr. Patelli.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your patience as we work through kind of the technical issues that we are having all night long. Thank you for coming. Thank you, those of you who are streaming. Tonight's purpose is to really go over the feasibility study of where we are and where we're going with the process. Also, we had a town hall meeting and we were really, really fortunate to have a lot of people come and speak their mind and ask questions. So our goal here is to answer those questions to the best of our ability. I just need to remind everybody, because there's a lot of conversation about transparency. This is the infancy and initial stages of this. This is the beginning of this process. So we are being transparent because we're getting you involved right away. We're seeking your input. So it seems like we're not prepared when that's truly not the case. We wanted to know what the pulse was so we knew which direction to go. That way the board can understand, okay, this is not something our community has an appetite for, so let's move in this direction. We offered 5 options so that our board can make a decision of which way they want to take using our facilities in the future. This is the beginning. We are nowhere close to a final decision. My goal in March or April would be for the board to either select 2 of the options that we've proposed. It's really 2.5 of the options because status quo is always an option, but for them to choose 2 of the options and then we will start to dig in more. The board has not weighed in on this. So I know there's been a lot of conversation in the public that the board has made a decision. I can tell you in complete sincerity, I have no idea what the board is thinking, each individual member. We have not spoken about this. There have been no executive sessions discussing this. They knew what the options were, but they have not had any conversations about it. Tonight is going to be the first conversation that they're going to have. So my hope is that I'm going to answer some questions, give some clarity to where we were, why we got to this point, and then kind of give more information. And then at each point, we're just going to stop and discuss. So if you looked at the slide deck already, you'll notice that like at different segments, it's okay, let's talk about it. At any point, any of the members can stop me and interrupt and ask questions. Any questions to start us off with? At the end, so we flipped a work session. At the end, we had public comment because we want people to listen to all of what we're going to say and then ask follow-up questions or give once you have more information. So let's start it off. Our goal is truly to maximize today's potential for tomorrow's success. That is why we're doing this exploration project. I never want to look back and say, we should have asked those questions. So we're trying to ask all of the questions now so that we never look back and say, we didn't consider that. I wonder what would have happened. Part of the consideration is, okay, no, it's process of elimination. So that's where we're at right now is what are we comfortable with? What are we not comfortable with as a community? So tonight we're going to talk about the details of the feasibility study because there were lots of questions about that. I'm going to offer some background information. We're going to talk about the budget. Then we're going to talk about 5 options and then thoughts moving forward. No decisions are made. This is not a board meeting. This is a work session to discuss it. So there are no action items tonight. No decision is going to be made. We're going to discuss it again in 2 weeks at our upcoming board meeting. This is just informational and discussion for the board. So when we talk about the feasibility study, I'm going to go over the why, the timeline, and the option change that we gave between December and January. So this was on our board presentation on May of 2025 that we recommended for a feasibility study by RLPS. The whole purpose was to evaluate how we're currently utilizing our buildings and facilities, to review enrollment trend data, to support the development of a long-range capital improvement plan, to develop focus groups to facilitate planning conversations, and to offer recommendations about future planning for building utilization. That's the why of why we started this process and we went down this road. Now, at different points in my conversations with individual board members, there were some concerns and some things as a new superintendent coming on that the board wanted me to investigate. They wanted me to investigate that the elementary boundaries do not match the north-south delineation. What that means is about 50% of students at Resica, starting in 6th grade, go to Lehman, and the other 50% go to JTL. Well, our students spend 6 years together building friendships and building that community, and then they are pulled apart. Middle Smithfield, depending on the year, the average is about a 90 to 10% split. It changes year to year depending on where students live. So they really wanted me to explore what those boundaries are for the elementary schools. Then the board was having lots of conversations about academies and a magnet school and what would that look like at the secondary level? Where could we put it? Where would it live? And how can we run it? Then the board also had an interest in providing in-district programming for students who are placed alternatively. Students are placed alternatively sometimes for behavior, sometimes for complex programming that we do not offer. They wanted me to investigate what that could possibly look like. And then there was conversations about JM Hill, that it needs maintenance and some renovations. It doesn't mean we've ignored the maintenance or the renovations, but it's due for a roof within the next year, and it's due for new mechanicals within the next few years. So before investing in a roof and mechanicals, we wanted to know if the board had appetite to renovate, to build a new, or to potentially close. So those were really the why. Those were the questions that were posed to me of why we went down this road for the feasibility study. The actual timeline of the feasibility study was we issued a request for proposal in March. We received all of those requests for proposal on April 11th. We used a very, very solid rubric. We went through the process. We pared it down to 3 firms, and we interviewed 3 of the top firms. And then from there, RLPS was selected as the top firm that has experience in the education space, and they do feasibility studies. So on May 19th, I presented and requested for the board to approve the contract with RLPS. It was $24,500 with an option of $4,000 for 3 focus group meetings. We have held 1. At this point. Now, that's where we've been, where we're going. And then since May, so since we approved that, to February, we have held monthly steering committee meetings with our cabinet level administrators and RLPS. We have sent the board weekly updates on our progress. We have done a thorough review of all of our building structures, the mechanicals and enrollment data. RLPS did that work. They spent a significant amount of time meeting with our building leaders and the facility department leaders, talking about the status of the buildings, what we love about our buildings, and what we would like to change about our buildings. We also spent a lot of time talking to our building instructional leaders about programs. So if you could have anything, what would you want? Do you want more updated science labs? Do you want more space for STEM? What do you want? What are pain points of that you can't do with the programming that you have? And where do you want to see it going in the future? So we spent a lot of time talking to our internal teams about the facilities, programs, mechanicals, even enrollment. Now, the option change was really that we were listening. So during our December board meeting, someone highlighted that 3 of the options considered closing Hill. And we were like, oh my gosh, they're absolutely right. And it seemed skewed and not proportional. When we looked at option D and E, they were incredibly similar. So we said, let's have one with 5 elementary schools and one with 6 elementary schools. That was an intentional option change, not a sleight of hand. It was not intended to be a shell game. Okay, board, do you have questions, thoughts, or concerns about how we got to this point just with the process of the feasibility study?
I had one about the surveys. Like, who came
Okay.
up with our survey questions, and like, when do we know we got enough responses for it to be a good representation of our district?
It's a great question. So we came up with the survey questions. RLPS helped to guide that process. That was part of a steering committee process. We thought that they were targeted at what we were looking at doing with programming. We really wanted to look at that high school programming and those supports. When we realized that the survey responses were minimal, the reality is that we built another survey. And after we launched the December 15th meeting and we launched the 5 options, and at the town hall meeting, we launched the new survey to get really, really detailed, specific information. Now I'm going to present that survey information in the next meeting. I haven't finalized all of it yet, but sadly, the participation rate is lower than we'd like to see again.
Do you think that's because we basically only offered it through a QR code or go to the website, and we should have had other ways to?
What other ways would you like to see?
Did we send out like the blanket text
Yep,
to residents?
not to residents,
We can do
because
that.
we wanted to start with our learning community of our teacher, our staff, our students, our parents, because we want their opinions first of what, because it directly impacts them of programmatic changes and buildings. The next step is going to be engaging our outward community of taxpayers.
And I say that because there are people who will have children coming into the
Yep.
system, and it almost as if we excluded them.
We're not, just remember, because we're not making any final decisions yet. So what we were doing was we were trying to get a pulse of where are we at with our current community. When we get to the 2 options and you help to narrow our focus, we will develop more surveys and then we will send them out to the general, everybody will receive it.
2.5 options.
2.5 options. Thank you, Debbie. Yes.
I just can interrupt and say that folks on YouTube may not be hearing us. They can hear Rebecca, but not hearing us. If there's a way to test that, if the folks in the back,
Dave and Jordan, did you hear that YouTube cannot hear us?
they can hear Rebecca. You have audio on YouTube.
I'm listening to YouTube right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions before we move on?
One comment, just want to make that, I think many of us on the board were very excited about this feasibility study for planning for the future. As we all know, one thing education can never be is status quo or stagnant. So we wanted to really see what can we do as we look ahead, maybe not for next year, but way ahead. What are things that are possibilities? What are things that are not possibilities? So, that was my initial excitement about the feasibility. We wanted to see, because that had been neglected in our district prior to you coming here, Dr. Vitale, that planning ahead and planning for the future was non-existent. So
I also want to comment on that. For those of you who follow the EPR committee, of which I am chair, which is educational, one of the reasons why I ran for the board was to make sure that our programming really has moved, because particularly in the high school level, we hadn't rewritten curriculum in over 20 years. And so that's something I was really very much interested in. And because, being out in the community, we know that the amount of students that we have in the North Campus shrunk. They said, well, we really need to look at a feasibility study so we know where our students are. We're talking about equity all the time between all of our schools. So what programs are being offered, in the North Campus, what programs are being offered in the South Campus. And as we move forward, really where should we go? So I was in full support of the feasibility study from that perspective. I mean, obviously buildings are going to come into play with that, but really at the heart of education is the programming of our students. And that's really what, from my perspective, what we needed to look at with the feasibility study.
Goodbye, Tammy. Being newer, I'm trying to understand when the first survey went out, because as a parent, I don't remember seeing it, but I do remember seeing the second one. So maybe that would be helpful.
The first survey went out. I can find you the exact date, but I'm kind of locked in right now. I want to say September, October.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, so now we're going to get into some background information. We're going to talk about North-South high school disparity, some district enrollment information, and transportation was a common theme during our town hall meeting. So when we talk about North-South, it is very obvious that the enrollment is different. There's about 800 students at North High School and about 1,268 students at South. That's difficult because the enrollment is significantly different. The staffing, there's about 30 less staff at North and South. When we talk about enrollment and talk about why it's disparate, I'm going to offer an example of AP courses. So when we run advanced placement courses, right now at North, we're running multiple courses because we want our students to have the same opportunity. However, in a South AP course, we have 25 students. In our North AP course, we have 2. Now, that sounds like a great class size. 2 is actually too small to have solid group work and have group think because it's the same person over and over again. And on the teacher side of it, I have one teacher teaching a course with 20-some students and another teacher teaching a course with 2 students. So when we talk about grading, there's an inequity there. So as a board and whatever route you go, we're going to have to start to have conversations of what is our threshold of when we're running AP courses. But we have to recognize that those 2 students at North deserve that AP course as much as the 25 students at South. However, paying a teacher who teaches perhaps only AP courses to teach 6 children in a day versus another teacher to teach 75 is much different. So we are going to have to come to an agreement on what is our class size. And if we have less than this many students, we are not running those classes anymore. But the reality is that directly impacts the student experience. Students are going to get less.
The other point with that is when we're using a teacher to teach to students, so I'll use English since that's where I was at South, you are then also taking away that other 20 spaces, if you will, to the other classes, and so that also increases the class size for the other classes. So, that's part of what we really, what we really have to look at.
Do we have the option, as they do in many places, when you have off-site students with just a proctor, that they could be zoomed in?
Mrs. Catrillo?
When, years ago this was, it was called distance learning. It was before, Zoom and everything came into play. Myself and Larry Gaster, for those of you who've been here for a long time, we were the first teachers to teach via distance learning. And what that meant was we basically had to stand on a mat, that was maybe 10 by 10 to teach so that they, the other students could, see us and so forth. Long story short, no doubt about it that the students at South had me, personally all the time. So I asked if I could go north at least once a week or once every other week, so that, the students would, be having personally, that we could engage. In order to do that, though, the traveling, I would have to lose a period like of teaching. And that was not necessarily the best. Now we're in a different scenario, obviously, with Zoom. And the only, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, only because it's really like that those students are like at Osaka, you know what I mean? That they're having a learning experience via the computer. They're not having the personal one-on-one. If we could make schedules so that, we could, teachers could move back and forth, but then you'd be losing that teacher also for at least a block because of the transport. So,
But it's worth
But-
investing.
it's, I mean, it's something, it's something to think about.
With a
It's
lot
something
of
to think
training
about.
But I
programs.
think, I think using yesteryear's technology as a comparison is a mute subject right now. Because distance learning is a thing of many fine institutions across our country, colleges, Ivy League schools. And it's a whole different experience now. And not even Zoom, you can use Google Meet, there's so many different options.
Right, and I don't know if the platform matters. I think,
Well, it does.
Well, I mean,
but whether it's Zoom or Google Meet, I
Well,
think,
I'm saying the technology is different than what.
agree.
Control is saying.
Absolutely.
I know, trying to make the comparisons, but the point is, I mean, we all did this during COVID as well. I mean, so all of our students learned, via Google Meet, via, on the computers. I mean, I might have been home, but I was still having that, same communication, what I mean, with my students. But my students actually knew me, what I mean, prior to that. And then the next year, we were doing half and half. So there always still was some face-to-face and emotional. And I get that at college level, but high school, I'm sorry, and maybe I'm a little old-fashioned, but like, I want my kids to see me and know me and, part of the personality and the emotion that goes into teaching, I think is.
But they are just through different channels.
And we don't need a solution for these problems tonight.
Okay,
I think all we need is to identify that these are some of the challenges
Right.
that got us here, and we're going to have to make some decisions moving
I'm
forward.
just
Yeah,
clarifying
Mhm.
what Ann said about, you're using comparison of years ago.
Yes, I would
It's
start
different.
where it is now.
correct, absolutely,
And we had money years ago and we're facing deficits now.
correct.
So we have to look at it from a full perspective of a lens.
Agree, absolutely.
Every possible spectrum here.
We have to ask every question.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else about APs? So MCTI instructional minutes is actually a struggle at the North Campus. So we do not do 180 days anymore. We do 990 hours. The reality is that for our MCTI students, because of travel time, it is very difficult to get those 990 hours in for those students because of that travel. Also, bringing them back. So what we've done is MCTI morning North students get bused straight to MCTI. But what that creates is very long routes because we're picking up students across the entire North Campus to fill 2 or 3 buses to go directly to Bartonsville. So whereas South students get picked up on their normal route, they get dropped here, they wait, they load, and they go. North students go directly there. However, PM and the AM kids returning, the AM students don't return to North in time for third block. And the PM students have to leave before second block is done. So scheduling for those students, and there's 150 of them, is very, very, very cumbersome, which is why North has gone away from the block schedule in most cases and gone to period based, because they can't, if you do a block and your AM kids are coming back, they're missing part of block 3 every day. Your PM kids for MCTI are missing part of block 2 every day. So it creates a challenge. It doesn't mean we don't have a solution and we can't figure it out, but there are challenges there that exist.
Comment on that as well, only because that also affects the Zoom. Like, part of the issue is, I mean, I've been retired for 5.5 years, so using that just as a reference, to be transparent on. North scheduling at that time was also not exactly the same as South, and to my knowledge, it still is not.
It's not.
The same. So if you don't have those courses happening at the exact same time in both schools, you're not going to be able to do the Google Meet or whatever platform you just mentioned.
So when we look at after school activities between North and South, there are some differences. Not because we don't want to offer the same between North and South, but because there's different interest. Also a different level of engagement. When I speak to the students at North, they talk about the challenges of, because the community is spread out and is more, is not as connected as the borough is, that the students report to me, they are finding that when students stay after for after school activities, they're not doing the work of the activity, they're doing social time. So the students themselves who have a mission to do whatever the activity is are finding themselves disengaged because their peers are more there to socialize and hang out as opposed to do the work of the organization. Also, whether it's good or bad or right, wrong, or indifferent, advisors are not easy to come by in some of the activities. So people will always say, and I'll use Keith of DECA, we want DECA North. I don't have an advisor for DECA, and I also don't have enough students to run DECA. So our students at South have a great opportunity with DECA. Our students at North do not. When we look at athletics, it's the same thing with engagement, but it's also fielding teams. South has 1,200 plus students. North has 800. Population theory just says it's more difficult to field teams. I met with a student last year that literally broke my heart. She wanted to play field hockey. One North student who wanted to play field hockey. There was nobody else. No one else. She's not allowed to go South because of PIAA. There's a lot of restrictions there. So that child had no opportunity, whereas if she would have lived 10 miles south, she would have been at South High School, been a Cavalier, and been able to play field hockey. I didn't have an answer for her. There was no solution to that problem. Her entire career in education was changed because she didn't live in the right boundary line to have field hockey. Competitive cheer is the same. This year, competitive cheer had X number of girls. Several girls chose to leave the team. And right before the competition, they no longer had enough students to go. South made states and was at competitive cheer. The North girls who wanted to compete were sitting home because they could not field a team. These are not things that I'm saying are insurmountable, but the reality is that the experience is different between North and South. It doesn't mean we like North or dislike North. It doesn't mean we like South or dislike South. It's just the reality that when we have two high schools, people are always going to talk about the inequity. If we have different number of students, we're always going to have some inequity in programming of class size and some inequity of activities and athletics. If we stay status quo, that's fine, but I think we just need to identify that we have to be comfortable explaining, I'm sorry, this is the way it is. When we talk about class size, so this is currently the average class size across the district in all 6 buildings. Because of boundary lines, you can see that any grade goes from 17 kids in a class to 23 kids in a class. It fluctuates depending on where your bubbles are and where you have more students per grade. The building principals do a great job trying to even it out and changing teachers' grade levels every year. So this is across 6 schools. There was a lot of conversation that if we closed one of our elementary schools, that class size would go up. It's not true because we still need the same amount of teachers. What would happen is we would be able to even it out a little bit more and be a little bit more consistent. So we would go from higher class sizes to actually lower, more consistent class sizes across the district. We need the same amount of teachers. We're not changing how many students we're educating. If we closed one of our schools, they would go somewhere else. We would repopulate and level set our class sizes so that they were more equitable across all of the buildings. When we
just
look at the,
And real quick, before you move on to the middle school, if you don't mind.
for it.
So if we go back to the elementary school and we see, like, for example, kindergarten, there's 19 per class. How many classes per school of each do they have?
It depends how many, which school you're talking about. Some have 2, some have 4. One might have 5, depending on the grade level.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
We know, or maybe this isn't the right time for this question, but when we talk about redistricting those elementary schools, Resica and Middle Smithfield, how does that play out with class size and does, and with North?
So we have not drawn the maps yet, and there were some questions of do we have maps? So we do not have new boundary maps even considered. We would look at that. And then I would propose not just redistricting Resica and Middle, but looking at, if you're doing it, looking at the entire district and trying to create more equitable numbers based on what we have. But the reality is, right, the Brady Bunch can move in with 6 kids in one house, and now your numbers are skewed. So creating even class sizes is not possible. You're always going to have some disparity in it, but we're just trying to level set it. So at least there's the same option to move the same amount of teachers around.
And would that help with the population problem kind of up at North?
Yes. Correct.
Would it increase the travel time for some of the students?
Yes,
That'd be a disadvantage.
correct. Absolutely. We're not on the same slide. Why is this?
I don't know why. Not at all.
I know for my kids, when they went to North, the bus came at 6:15 in the morning and the day didn't start till 7:15. So it is a long bus ride, even for people like my kids who went to Resica. It was a split school. It's, whether they went to North or they went to South would have been a little bit shorter. But, it is what it is. And they went to North and they loved it, but the bus ride was long. But that's going to be true no matter what we do in a lot of the other options that we're looking at possibly with this study. So,
Right.
Which is something we need to consider as well.
So when we look at intermediate class size, same kind of comparison at JTL, we have higher class sizes because there's more students at JTL than there are at Lehman. So if we considered redistricting our boundary lines for what is north and what is south, we could make it more equitable across the board and even out some of these class sizes. Again, we need the same amount of teachers to teach our students. I'm not suggesting that we start to cut back. we would still use our teachers and utilize to make sure that we have even class sizes. Any questions about class size before we move on to transportation? Yes.
If you're talking about restructuring, redistricting the whole district, even out class sizes, you're gonna be, you're gonna be talking about this 10 years from now when they start building more buildings in common areas. It's,
I mean, but I understand the frustration in all of this. And the problem is, we as a board have inherited where the locations are. We have two campuses that are literally at the furthest ends of the district.
17 miles apart.
So as a result of that, we're in this, situation. And in truth, you're right. I mean, 5 years from now, we can't, none of us can predict the future. That's the problem. When they built the North Campus, we had to because of the explosion of population that we had. And for those of you who were here, where the line was going on Cuba, okay, we thought that we had a big meeting at JTL, a couple of weeks ago. Back then, forget about it, you cut somebody's arm off. So, and I'm not making, I'm not making light of it. It's really important to everyone, where they live, where they want their kids to go. I mean, our kids were Cavaliers too, so I understand that. But the point is, we have to make decisions because the education of our students is on the line, kids that we have now, kids that we have in the future. And and really, how do we do that? I think it's important for everyone who's here, everyone who's listening to really understand the complexity, of what we're trying to do here as a board to understand, well, are they gonna build? Is the train coming? We moved up in 1989, the train was coming 2 years, okay, we get 40 years and it's not coming. So, that's all part of, really what we're looking at.
The feasibility study should have looked at, is the train coming? That's what I keep asking,
Yeah.
what do realtors say?
Yeah.
Realtors have an idea.
Those are things I think in the next stage, whatever options we're looking at, I'm assuming. When we go into the communities, those are the things that we're gonna have to look at and see.
I can
Yeah.
tell you 25 years ago, when I bought my first house, the realtor told me the train was coming.
Yes.
20 years
40
ago.
years ago, we built ours. They said it'll be an easy commute in.
the land is grown.
We're the closest we've ever been to the train actually coming into the station. I agree.
It's like the Buffalo
But
Creek
that
bypass.
train is not gonna be.
A commuter train, right?
It's
That's,
a
Right, not a computer.
Yes.
But
train, it's
Correct.
not designed for commuter.
yeah,
Commuter.
the mystery train will be a joy train, not a work train.
But I'm just saying, it's just, and unfortunately, we don't have all those answers. But that's all I know is in the 400 to 500 difference of students that we have north and south. If that trend, we could say, okay, we'll leave it status quo now, and we can come up with different things to hold on, for, maybe a couple more years to see if the pattern's going to change. I don't know, I don't have the answer to that, obviously, but
And we
that's,
still don't know also what Legend's gonna do with their project, if they're building the homes. I know that they were originally building homes and now we're hearing they wanna build data centers instead, so we don't even know what's happening there,
right.
let alone the train coming.
And that would bring more south even. So,
Right, that's the
Yeah,
deal.
exactly, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
data center. Anyway, sorry.
No, this is exactly what we wanted.
Then my question is, the class size is shown, what's our range again? Refresh my memory, what our range is for class size perfection right now?
So I would say we wanted in elementary, no more than 24. In a class. In primary, we shoot for no more than 20. That is ideal. Secondary 25 is a good number, but there are some classes that go a little bit above that. Any other questions about class size before we dig into transportation? Okay. So transportation, I said this at our last meeting. In one day, our buses drive 6,100 miles. That is enough to go to San Francisco, back, and then Miami. An average ride when we pulled this, and what we did was we took out our students who are in non-pubs and out of district placement. But our average ride is 24 minutes in the morning and 25 minutes in the afternoon. The longest bus ride that we have, and this should be including, is non-pub and out of district placement. So our students who are non-pub, which is our private schools, and our students at out of district. So some of our students go to a school in Troop, which is far.
Mhm.
So we took that information out when we pulled this. But the reality is that we are 214 square miles. And Mrs. Cotrillo, you said that south is the south part, north is not. North is not. We have Porter Township, Hemlock Farms. South is a few blocks away from the creek, right? North is not. We go way further than that. Although we feel like we're a suburban school district, we are truly a rural school district in the routes that we have and the distances. We also have to identify that so many of our communities, our buses can't go into and do a short pickup, that our students drive or walk miles to their bus stop because we cannot be in many of these gated communities. So our students' commute to school is significant. We recognize that. Special education runs are an impact, that's a challenge. And just because it's a challenge doesn't mean it's wrong or bad. It's just something that we're facing. So several years ago, they separated some of the special education runs by classification, meaning students in autistic support, students in emotional support, and students in learning support and life skills are not necessarily commingled on the same bus. I have some thoughts on that I don't particularly love that, and we're going to look at that. In the past, there was a driver shortage that forced us to collapse routes and extend some routes. We also have a higher percentage of students with educational instability, which means they're either in foster or experiencing homelessness. We still allow them and want them to come to school because we want school to be their stability for them. So when a student goes into foster or is unhoused, they don't have to change their district. We want to keep them here so that they keep their friend group and they keep a stable life and they keep their continuity of education. Well, that means we are transporting students from an hour, hour and a half away, so that they can keep that stability if we determine that's best for them. So if the family, the foster care, if everybody involved agrees that that's right, well, that is taxing on our transportation. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It's not a value statement. It's just identifying that we are doing the best we can with a lot of challenges that we face. We did the bell time study. The whole purpose of that had nothing to do with the feasibility study. They were really two isolated things that all happened around the same time. We wanted to look at the efficiency of our transportation. It was all about efficiency. We presented the information in October. We conducted a survey in November, and then we were supposed to review the data in December, but the meeting was running long and I didn't want to fatigue us from data and charts. So we moved it to January. The outcome is that we're investigating a micro move of adjusting secondary to 5 minutes earlier and elementary to 10 minutes later. We're going to run those routes right now. So we're going to run kind of like a mock bus route to see if it gets the intended outcome. And then we're going to present that information. But we can't conflate the bell time study and the feasibility study. They were two completely different studies with two completely different purposes. Okay, a lot of background information, thoughts, concerns, or questions? Okay. Budget background. Okay, we're gonna go over last year's budget, this year's budget, debt service, and capital projects. So in the 2024-25 school year, our revenue was anticipated to be 186 million. Our expenditures were anticipated to be 203 million, roughly. And the board approved a deficit budget of 17.4 million. The AFR just came in and the actual was 10.2, which is good, but it was still a $10.2 million deficit. Our revenue versus our expenditures are $10 million apart. That was last school year. This school year, we approved a budget with revenues of 187.5 million, expenditures of 214 million, which was a deficit of about 26.5 million. That is this current fiscal year's budget. Now, we have some great updates. We restructured debt, which pulled 9 million off. There were significant charter school tuition. Thank you, Representative Probst. That saved us what we anticipate about 1.2 million this year. So that took off about $10 million of expenditures. The state came through with more revenue for us. So that right-sized our budget, that the deficit, and I can't say the word only, but the deficit went from 26 to 16 million. Still deficit, 16 is a big number. So what that does with our fund balance, which is like your savings account, at the end of last school year, it was 51 million. At the end of this past, the 24-25, it's 40.9 with a $16 million deficit. We're anticipating it to be 24.6 million. We are eating away very rapidly from the fund balance. Something in our budget has to change. 75% of your budget, and these are words we don't want to say, but we're going to have to say it. 75% of your budget is personnel. The other 25% is a lot of fixed costs. We can't stop paying our electric bill. We can't stop paying for propane for our buses. There are a lot of fixed costs in there that we cannot move. So board had a finance committee earlier today. There are some big decisions that we're going to have to make of how we decrease expenditures, because increasing revenue, we can only increase revenue so much. And the way we do that is taxing. And
we
that
haven't
is,
raised our taxes in how many years?
we
mean,
raised 2
significantly
mills last year, and then before that, it was about 15 years.
Yeah.
Now, when we look at the capital fund, we were at 19.8 in June of 24. We did some projects, so we were at 16.3. And then this year we have about $3.9 million in projects. Property and Facilities is going to talk about some of those projects, but we anticipate being in the $13-14 million range with capital projects. And I remind the board that once we put money into the capital project account, it's there forever. We can't move it back into the general operating account. When we talk about any questions about that, those are big numbers. When we talk about debt service, we restructured our debt in September of 2025. This is now the debt service. And I believe, Keith, you said it earlier today, that we should always carry some debt. We should, because the reality is if we ever don't have debt, when we go into a project that needs debt, clawing back 6-7 million in your budget's never going to happen. So we should always carry some debt, but here is the debt service for us. So it's 6.4 this year, then it goes to 10. We have 3 years of 15, then it drops at a cliff to 5 million, 5.5. And then in 2034, it drops to $5,000. So we know we're going to hit a cliff of debt service soon, not soon enough. So a lot of people were asking questions of what the renovation cost is. Preliminary reno costs, 22 to 24 million. So just for a round number, I did 25 million for a renovation cost of JM Hill. Going down to the studs, changing the learning environment, probably adding on and no longer using the basement as instructional space. So if we did that, basically we increase the debt service, that the cliff that falls off doesn't fall off. It turns into, instead of $5,000, 3.6 million. But I'm gonna always say, we should always have some debt service. If we built a new, and this is interesting, and I asked them multiple times, how much for a reno, how much for a new? A reno, 22 to 24 million. A brand new building, 35 million. Doesn't seem real. I promise you, I asked them multiple times. So if we loan out and add debt of 35 million, it changes the 15s to 17s. There's a missing zero right there. In 2031, that should be 6.8 million. And then it changes it from 5,000 to 5 million in years 34 to 41.
Not too bad.
It takes about 2 years planned just to get the building ready to go.
And construction costs are not getting cheaper.
But even if we were to say as a board, hey, we're gonna do,
Mhm. Correct.
it's gonna take 2 years of planning right out the door before you even put a shovel in the ground.
Correct, but you still need, in order to go through it, just because my last district I did it, you still need to start looking at that debt service. Now, you don't pull that off. So like when I worked with PFM to do these numbers, you don't pull it off right away. So you don't pull the 35 out immediately. This is based on if we did it today.
That's my point.
Correct.
Is that, so you need to be looking 2 years after this,
Correct.
2028,
Yep.
before you're even using,
Agree.
you'll need some money for the planning.
Plans,
of it.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would we have to move students temporarily as we reno, or would it be reno while they were there?
You know, Rebecca, thank you. I appreciate that. So in conversations with architects, I asked that question. So for a new structure, they are not sure if we have the footprint space. So you need the space for the footprint, then you need the staging area,
Mhm.
and then you have the building. There's 5 acres there, which sounds like a lot of space, but there's not a lot of space. And the architect said, well, we can just get rid of the parking lot. Well, people in the borough, where are the teachers going to park?
You're gonna bust
So
it.
I believe, bust them in. I believe that for a renovation or a new build, that we'd be relocating the students for a few years to other elementary schools and then welcoming them back to either their brand new renovated building or their brand new building.
What happens to the old building if that happens? What was your thought process on the current building?
It would either be renovated or it would be,
Or if you built a new building,
it would be torn down.
turned out.
And then we would build the new building on the back half of the property. Yep. But all of that would be subject to the architects and the engineers, right? So when we look at capital projects, roof replacement, and some of these are not full roofs, some of these are just parts of roofs, but over the next several years, we will have to replace Bushgill, South Stadium, JM Hills roof this year. For next year, ESE, JTL's gym roof has to be replaced. Part of High School South's roof have to be replaced. JTL's roof and Middle Smithfield's roof have to be replaced. ESACA's roof and then the South Bus Depot's roof has to be replaced. So I just need this parts of roofs, not full roofs. Some of them are parts, some of them are full. There's all different lifespans of all different, I didn't know how far into the weeds to get.
Saying that they're gonna have to be replaced have we done an actual survey of what they are now? I mean, because
Yes, so yes, this is what Train and RLPS have done, and these are the suggestions.
Roofs, train is not train is,
They looked at our roofs as well. They looked at our roofs. I promise they're gonna present.
when do they do roofs?
They're not doing roofs, but they inspect things. But they're part of the process. So part of the process that we did with property and facilities with Train, roofs and building envelope was included in that.
Okay.
So then when we look at boiler replacement cycle, JTL domestic hot water, Bushkill domestic hot water in the coming years, the rest of the projects are several years out. But I'm showing this just to say, we have big projects coming. We have 13 million in capital funds. Those big projects with roofs, domestic hot water and boilers become very expensive. So we're going to go through that quickly. So when we talk about the capital project, the capital fund, that 13 million shouldn't be considered for the 25 million renovation.
Correct.
Right? So you shouldn't say, oh, well, we have 13 million in this. We only need 12 million for the renovation. We need that 13 million for the other projects that we're working.
What's the average lifespan on a boiler?
20 to 25 years.
Yes, well,
We are not replacing things that are in good condition.
no, we're not, I have a question about training. Who, they're, how much are we?
Nothing. We've paid them not a dime.
That's, okay,
So
I think the idea here is we're getting a baseline just to see what projects could be on the list, right? There, we have to have an expert go up and then do a real inspection of the roof to confirm.
just because it's on the list doesn't mean we're doing it immediately.
I'm just looking at the South High School. I don't know what in South High School has to be replaced. That was,
Or have to-
that was a complete reno in 2009,
There's portions of it that need replacement.
from a complete reno.
2009, which will be 20 years, 2029.
Okay,
A 20-year lifespan, it's typical for a roof like that.
20 to 25 years is average lifespan.
20 what, Rebecca?
20 to 25 years is average lifespan on a roof.
Okay, let's just go on.
So there was a comment that we had neglected JM Hill over the last 10 years or so. So I just wanted to show that we've been updating JM Hill and doing some capital projects as we have with all of our buildings. So since 2012, we've invested at least about $4 million in replacing flooring, repairing things, the gym bleachers, ceilings in the gym. We're doing work there. We're not just ignoring it and letting it age. We're investing and making some changes there.
Excuse me, is there any way to get,
I'm sorry, it's not,
you can't see any of those?
They can't see the screen.
Their screens off right now, because they've been flickering in and out and then saying they'll only select source if there's no text available. Sorry about that.
these can turn.
Can you turn these out?
They're
Yeah,
not
they
seeing,
are.
they're not seeing.
Again,
Okay. Thank you.
Let's turn these out so they can,
This one's hers.
Yeah, they both should.
yeah, I didn't,
I didn't realize it.
no, we don't have any.
Well, you just turned a blank screen, so.
Now it's the same as those screens.
Now they pull them out.
That will stay the same.
No, they,
No,
they turn black before you touch it.
Oh, good. Thought it was my magic hands.
No. There it comes.
Now they're all on my things.
Now they're all.
Anything else you need done?
I see anyway.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Yes, that's where we're at. Absolutely. No, thank you for saying something. So, we have partnered with Train for free to look at projects that we could do that would be energy saving projects that would save significant energy and help us fund projects in the future. That presentation is happening Wednesday night of what they've looked at and evaluated. So they have looked at the whole mechanicals, roofs, all of that. So they're not saying replace roofs, they're saying, hey, if we do this project of lighting controls, it saves this much money. And then 2 years from now, with the savings to your budget, you can help fund this roofing project that the year has expired on, that it's a 30-year roofing project. So they have gone through. So some of these projects, if we partner with Train moving forward, could be done to minimal cost or to minimize cost. Budget, background, questions, thoughts, or concerns?
I just want to give one, something I learned, because when I was looking at this, I'm thinking like, wow, we look like we're in bad shape, but not that misery loves company, but being on the IU board this year, it seems like every district with our IU is facing a double-digit deficit, and the IU goes from here pretty much right down 33 till you hit Bethlehem, all those districts, and it's just, you know, everyone, and some of them are worse shape because they have no fund balances or they're much smaller districts than we do and have less options, but it just seems like this is a very bad year for school budgets, so.
The question, when we talk about fund balance, did we recover any of our fund balance we had to retake from in order to get through the budget crisis from Harrisburg? Has that been replenished, or is that just going? Well, when we were in the crisis, when Harrisburg didn't have a budget for about a year now, you know, I'm sorry, Representative Probst, it was a while. But not to your end, but we had a while, we were fortunate to be able to tap from our fund balance, correct?
No, we were not tapping from our fund balance. We were using our general operating budget.
Okay, so
It came, so because the budget season happened during tax collection season,
we locked it.
all that happened was that we didn't move money into our investments as much as we normally did. Right? So typically we run a lot of our taxes into investments and we earn interest on it. We weren't able to do that because we were running off our general operating budget for that. Any other budget yes?
Idea from the federal money that comes to the state, what we're going to get, if they're routing federal funds now to the states to distribute?
We're not anticipating a different number than what we've been getting for our federal funds.
Well, I understood federal funds were not going to come directly to us, that it was going to go to the state.
It passes through.
So it's the same number?
Yes, so those are the preliminary calculations that we have received is our federal funds are going to remain consistent.
Hoping for a larger number.
I would always love a bigger number, Representative Probst,
Keep hoping.
and we appreciate it. Any other questions about the budget? Okay, we're gonna go over the 5 options. And now you tell me if we want to talk through each option or if we want to get to the thoughts moving forward section. So option A is status quo, no massive change. JM Hill address their needs.
I'm gonna bring right to the table. Unless we know we have an answer, we can't talk about it.
So when you say JM Hill needs, that's not a reno, that's just a Band-Aid?
It could be either one.
I mean, really, it's a mute subject, isn't it? Honestly,
Not at all. And then I think there's something that is really, really positive about it. As, first of all, we have to recognize that we've made a really huge, I don't want to say commitment, but we've made a really huge statement by saying, we're going to throw everything on the table. We're going to throw out some really unpopular ideas.
right?
And we're going to make an evaluation of that. there's never gonna be a good time for budget, ever. Even when the budget was good, it was still never really a good time to talk about it.
Mhm.
So we have to kind of set that aside and say, we're gonna live within our budget or try to find the best way through it. But the realities are we have to address what's right in front of us, right? So the district has gone through this process of saying, here's where we are at the moment. Whether you like it, you don't like it, whatever it is, here's where we are. And I think the questions we need to say, and really, I look at these, options A, B, and C, and E, and I say, well, what about D, what about F, G, H, and I? How do we as a board say, well, we're not crazy about this, but we're looking to go this way? So I think the big question for us as a board to decide, not tonight, because again, it's not a board meeting, but to sit down and say, what is the option to discard something, pick up something different, and build an option FGH or something like that.
But don't you need to know these somewhat close to what it's gonna cost? I mean,
You will absolutely need to do that, but you can't, until you have you whittle it down to 2 or 3 options, you're not gonna be able to say,
I think we need
Right.
3 or 4 options.
It- it's
and that's fine.
It's just like we do know,
Got going clear.
Right,
we do know, we're using the numbers of renovating versus building new. Thank you for those numbers.
You're welcome.
right.
But that's good for that project. But what about the rest? What about the busing costs of moving schools? What about, there's just so many.
Well, I think what we have.
When I asked to do this study, this feasibility study, I thought we were gonna get much more information than we got. And I'm not saying that they didn't do a good job for the money that they charged. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying my expectations were a bit higher. I
Okay.
was expecting to see a listing of, okay, at this school you have XYZ class sizes, more than just here are your 5 options. Without knowing what the 5 options.
You're getting the final report by the end of this week.
Okay,
It's Dr. Bukowski, 220-page document? How big was it? You're getting it. They're binding it. Do you remember how big the feasibility study report was that we just drafted? It's 200 some. It's coming.
okay.
They're binding it this week and mailing it.
And but see, I'm not trying to grandstand. I'm just,
No.
you asked for my points and I'm giving them.
I want,
Going off of what Rich was saying, as we're going through these, and I know, again, it's not something we decide now, but just in terms of discussion. If I'm looking at realigning elementary boundaries, we could discuss that, and if we seem to have more, nays than yeas, so to speak, we have to put it. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, because I don't know this. After our discussion here, from you listening to our discussion, I'm assuming you have to put something together in order for us to then vote on it, you know what I mean, to make some decisions of which options we're going to do. But it doesn't necessarily have to be any options that are here, we could discuss them. From where I'm sitting, I would say, well, I definitely want to have in whatever option we choose, educational programming, very specifically to make sure we're more closely aligned as north and south. You know what I'm saying? So that's something I would like to see for sure. But I might say no to closing Jane Hill, let's say. Do you know what I mean? So I would be, so I don't know if I'm making any sense, but in
It's
our
kind of
discussion,
spinning our
but we kind of then,
Right.
Seeing what the majority of the board is thinking, and then from there, create those options that you would then go to further investigate.
so right now we have 5 options. I mean, status quo is the status quo option. I need to hear from the board what you're so when I first came on, we were very wide with we want academies, we want a magnet school, we want an alt ed school.
We were treating, remember that?
Correct,
part
yep.
where we were-
And it was okay, well, to investigate all of that, what does a magnet school look like? What academies are we building? What alt ed school are we building? Where are we putting it? What does it look like? If we're redoing elementary boundaries, I'm gonna have to draw maps. That takes a lot of time. If we're redoing the entire district boundaries, we're going to have to draw maps. But then I need to know if Hill is involved in that or not. So it takes us all summer to build bus routes. So when we say we want more information, if you want more information on redistricting elementary schools of 5 and 6 elementary schools is really the choice. That takes weeks to do that. And then if you want, because that's 2 different options. And then if we're looking at redistricting the entire district, that's another few weeks of 2 different options, 5 or 6 elementary schools. If you want routes with, if we have 1 high school, 1 intermediate school, that's another few weeks to draw those routes. So what I need from the board is, okay, we have 0 appetite to consider closing JM Hill.
Yes.
We're gonna keep
Right.
JM Hill on the board. Great. That wipes out a whole bunch of different things for me to explore. I'm not gonna pay any attention to that, right? We have 0 appetite of 1 high school. We like the 2 schools. We want solutions of how to make it work. Great. Then I can narrow my focus. Right now, I feel like I'm a ping pong ball with information of like, I don't know what to give because there's so many vastly different options. And I wanted to give all these options because again, I never want to look back and be like, we never talked about this. Let's talk about it. Let's put the bad options to bed. Let's look at the good options, which is why I said, like, let's focus on, and Mr. Andrews, with all due respect, 4 options is still a lot of options for us to do. My fear is that I'm spending all of our time focusing on these 4 options and not necessarily doing other work that we should be doing.
Too short, small.
I don't know. I'm disagree that we need as many options, because I think the feasibility study had to be done. But I'm speaking for myself. I don't see we're at the point where we have to do a major change like a G and E, where we're going to start sending kids up north. As Ann said before, we're stuck with what we're stuck with. If the schools were in the middle, it would be great. I think I would go right for those options because they tend to make a lot of sense. But I think as we looked at the feasibility study and, we did want to investigate have a 4, 5, 6 building, but it's just, you can't. We know we can't put kids on a bus to leave down here to go north, or a kid to leave Pine Ridge to come here for over an hour on the bus. So I almost think I know we can't vote tonight, but I'm ready to tell you right now, I don't have any appetite for closing JM Hill, as I know many other people don't either. I can take that off the table. And also, I think a slight redistricting of our elementary schools right now could help our north numbers. If we can increase our north numbers, maybe 100, we could deal with that. It'll still be different, but if we could get, make that a disparity of 300 instead of 400 or 500 by redistricting. So I know what I'd just like to see, if we did those numbers and we tried to get 100 more kids up north, what would that look like for our elementary schools? And all the elementary schools, not including JM Hill included in that. That's where I'm at. All these other ones, I will never agree to send kids and close north now. We don't need to. We might. Who knows? But who knows? And I don't want to go on who knows. We have a plan, and maybe we have in the back of our head a possible plan if we get that far. But we're not there yet, and maybe we could adjust it so we never get there for that. But I know I'm ready tonight to say, and again, I'm not voting. As far as JM Hill, take that off the table as far as closing, and then let's look at maybe a plan to build the north numbers with some minor changes, see how many kids that impacts.
I also think.
That was my 2 cents.
Truthfully, actually, this has nothing about the options, but, going back to just scheduling. Like if we moved, like, as Michael just said, maybe some of the elementary numbers, so that they're staying with their friends, as we talked about, Smithfield and Westica. And that then brings, I don't know how many, 100, 150, to the North Campus. And then that's for elementary. But then when we move into the high school realm, let's talk, obviously, yard, et cetera, to align the schedules so that the schedules are the same. Because then if the schedules are the same, then we can do some of the, other options that we have, to keep us, as even as we can be, with programming as we move forward. Because, having been here when the high school first split, I mean, yeah, we were like over packed, so we can't bring 800, you know, down to South now, which is why I understand where the feasibility options came from, you know, even though like we looked at them and said, "Are you crazy?" You know what I mean? But they know from seeing it as we know, we can't take those 800 kids here. So in order to do that, we would have to reconfigure everything. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I think, you know, some of these other ideas that some of us looked at, think, oh my God, that's crazy. You know what I mean? But I think that's where it came from. So I understand that's, you know, why they did what they did. But doesn't mean we have to, you know, that's.
With an option F for G or H, I guess what I'm thinking is, you know, there are some other opportunities out there. I don't want to close down things, and this is gonna be almost a heresy in my family, because we're all Recipe students, family, right? But it's in the middle of the district, like Recipe is like the perfect school. If you're gonna say, hey, we're gonna try to do something really innovative, let's look at a magnet school for high school students. It's literally in the middle of the district. If you really wanted to do something that was innovative, and that was part of this process too. What are we doing, like looking out into the universe here? Maybe some things that we can do that's different, exciting, and really important for our students. Looking, you know, academically. And, you know, there are other options out there. And I don't want to close all of them down, you know, but how do we do that in the time frame that we have? You know, and I guess that's.
What's the opportunity for us to consider, whether we call it magnet or academies, and we say we're not fully using the North Campus, and students would know that they are selecting to go to that academy and utilize some of that space in the North Campus. And they would make a conscious decision, you know, how far they had to go, but yet those opportunities would be there.
Very similar to MCTI students that make a conscious decision to go to that program. Absolutely. So I think what I'm looking for is not necessarily, and we had to package it some way, right? So options,
Right.
but for, okay, and I skipped a whole bunch of slides, but to me, let's take it one step at a time. So and I put them in order of how kind of they fell out in the options, but maybe we look at one thing at a time. JM Hill solution. And go ahead, Jason.
I just want to circle back before you get to the final portions here. I think when we originally agreed to the feasibility study, we were looking at the status of our building. Where do they lie? Are there discrepancies in the educational modules that students have available to them in different buildings? That information is presented to us. We have that to work with. With that information, these were then presented to us in ABCD. I just have a question with regard to student numbers. The numbers that were presented this evening are different than our January report numbers, which are different than the feasibility study numbers. And so, for example, for option A, status quo, feasibility study says 1362 at South, 895 at North. Our January report pretty much agrees with that, 1371 at South, 890 at North. Presentation tonight states we have 1268 at South and 9796 at North. It's a 100 number discrepancy between those. So
I removed Osaka students.
okay, so Osaka student. So when they did the feasibility study,
Yep,
they counted Osaka students into these classes.
correct.
Okay. Now, that would be good to know for us because we would know how much space, physical space is in the building.
We are attempting to, well, we are opening up the hybrid option for our Osaka students to come into our building for classes. So for the purpose of the feasibility study,
We went full.
we went full because I want the students at Osaka, if they want to come in at any point, they are more than welcome to come in and out.
But our district enrollment, so we're just looking at Osaka, we're not looking at our separate kids. Correct?
We are not
We're
looking
not
at
counting in our.
students in charter
We're
schools.
not looking at our cyber charter.
No.
Okay. Next thing was with regard to redistricting, potentially realigning our boundaries, which could potentially be an option for the board moving forward. Option A and option B are identical. So we have nothing to base an opinion on for realigning our boundaries when status quo and boundary realignment are exactly the same.
Option A should be status quo. Option B should be redistricting elementary schools.
That is correct. And there's no difference between the two set of numbers that are presented to us. So for us to make an informed decision for redistricting and realigning boundaries, we need to see numbers that would be true to a rural alignment. Like Mr. Petrollo had mentioned, then we'd get a better idea of how many students would be up at North. Because right now we're saying based on option B, which is a realignment, it's still gonna have the exact same number of kids at North. We're gonna have the same number of kids at South, same at Litchfield, blah, 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 blah. So we just want to make sure that we have better numbers to make an informed decision on realigning boundaries.
Yeah.
And the other thing goes back to when you were saying to me about a student who wants to play at North. And I was just wanted to verify this, and I want Chris just to double check this as well. The PIAA Constitution and Bylaws, Article 3, Section 11 specifically states that if a district is broken into two, it would fall under Part 2. If a sport is not available to a student at the other campus, the district has to provide that student the ability to play.
What was it? Article?
It's Article 3, Section 11, Part 2. And so it's a co-sponsorship, and the AD should know this, because on our PIAA site, it specifically states what our sports are, what our classifications of sports are, and whether or not we co-sponsor with either an outside district with the new law with the parochial schools or our own district because we're split. So hearing that a student isn't given the opportunity to play because we don't have it at North, it's very disheartening, but to know that we have an opportunity for that student to be able to play, if we just investigate that and make sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because my ADs told me it couldn't be.
Okay, so if we can just.
Yep. She has graduated sadly, but
Okay.
yes.
But I do know, and so then.
But for any student.
Right, and then so
Yep.
then the other issue on the flip side of that is if we do create one district. If we do create one district or one high school, all of our classifications within our sports are gonna change.
Absolutely.
And so the general public needs to understand that, we might not be playing in the same division.
We turn into a 6A for basketball and for football.
Right, and so
Correct.
that needs to be understood as well, if we were going to try and put those together. So
Would that-
basically, I'm just looking for,
Just that Jason
Yeah.
or whoever's doing this as a clarification. If, let's just say, for example, even though the young lady has graduated,
right,
let's just say we did it for field hockey.
Mhm.
Then, as we said, our classification changes because then you're taking on.
no.
It changes if we combine schools
If you
because it
combine-
goes by your enrollment.
So if we took the North football team and
Correct.
we tried to,
Yep.
we're not allowed to combine two teams.
Correct.
That already exist.
Right.
Thank you.
But if one does not exist, then
Mhm.
theoretically it could. And so, really all I'm looking for is just a better idea of the numbers for, realigning. So make a more informed decision, because then it might move students into, unfortunately, we do have that AP course situation, and it might move students into AP level courses. Just to get a better idea of where we can go. from there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just want to, I am a North parent and I read it, so like I do still have some concerns around North academics, their athletics, recruiting teachers up there, getting coaches up there. Like there's just a slew of coaching positions that just opened up. My son just talked about how he doesn't have the same football coach. So like those are very real concerns for me, and I'm sure other North parents. So I just want to voice that is something that I would be particularly looking at when I'm looking at these options, is how are we ensuring that there's equity between the two schools? I think that the board has done its best to try to make sure that that's happening, but in reality, there's some differences, and they're apparent. And it's concerning to me. You know, my kids are probably, will graduate 29 and 30, so I don't know how much of benefit they'll get from the decisions that we make. Very future focused, and I think the academics of our children, it's very important. I'm able to put my kids in a few extra things to supplement them, but every parent may not be able to do that. So it's really important to me that the decisions that we make, that we're looking at the equity of North and that they're getting the same opportunities and, you know, things like having 2 AP students and they always have to go virtual. I don't care how good it is, it's not the same as being in a classroom with your peers to be able to talk and work with the teacher. So those things are important to me. I just want to put that out there. When I'm making that decision, that's what I'll do.
So when we talk about all the options, I'm wondering if we just threw too much out too fast, and if we go and we prioritize what is our priority, whether it's a JM Hill solution of, do we do boiler roof in the next few years? And children are learning, it's a wonderful environment, everybody is happy there, not to do a massive renovation or a new building. Renovation, status quo with the normal maintenance updates, new building. Do we look at that and start kind of ticking it off of, okay, let's talk about JM Hill. What's the solution for JM Hill? Check. Okay, elementary boundaries. Do we look at elementary boundaries? Okay, check. High school programming. Do we look at high school programming? Okay, check. Then alt ed, check. I intended for our families to do one move so that if we were looking at doing a magnet school or redistricting, we were doing it once, not multiple times. So I wanted to do the move and have one macro change. I'm hearing it's too much, too fast. We need to slow it down. So from you, and I think I'm getting it of we need to look at JM Hill solution is what I'm hearing. I think we need to finalize that. I heard a magnet school is still on the table, that we still have interest in that we like the north-south, that we definitely have to offer parity between the programming and staffing equity and stability in staffing. And I agree with you completely. I'm hearing that maybe look at elementary boundaries or district boundaries, but we want to see what those numbers are so that we understand. The high school programming, we definitely want academies and or magnet school, but maybe not yet. And then we haven't talked about alt ed, but I know that's a consideration of how can we start to bring our students who have complex needs back into our district, with the understanding we will always have some students that we cannot meet their needs here. Is that an accurate summation that we did too much, too fast? We need to slow it down. What I need to hear from you is, so here's my priority list. Where do you want to start with the conversations?
JM Hill.
I'm gonna push back against the too much too fast,
Okay,
only because we needed to put everything out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
we
you need to have that robust, heavy
Mhm.
conversation. It's not just, you're not just gonna get to.
It forced us to talk
It
about it.
forced us to
Exactly.
talk. Precisely.
It was this was well worth the time and effort to do this because
I agree.
it made us all look at it from multiple lenses.
Mhm.
And I'm feeling a little better from this.
Good.
One of the things, to be honest with you, I was very pro, separating the district after hearing the public and talking to students and hearing that, the camaraderie of up north and that is a family up there. It really is. And it's an amazing school. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful high schools in
Mhm.
the area, if you ask me.
The campus is
The
amazing.
campus is amazing.
Absolutely.
And it means, and the other thing, one of the things I would maybe ask is, I was one of the proponents about dividing the two elementaries. Have we surveyed the families at those schools to see if that really bothers them that they need split?
That's the next step.
Well,
Yeah.
because
I
I've always looked
would
at that,
definitely want to
but
look at that.
maybe they're okay with that.
Right.
And that was, you wanted a list? There you go.
Yeah.
This is.
I also think with JM Hill, we need to look at the improvements, not just the roof and the boilers, but I really think that we owe them a kitchen. Something to prepare food there rather than bussing it in every day.
Might be some expansion that should be considered on there too.
I mean,
I feel like we need to put in a new school there, honestly. It is my opinion that that school has reached its useful life as a building. And should be replaced to be there for the next 100 years.
Modernized in some way, yeah.
My concern is the basement.
the basement.
Yeah.
Yeah, the basement is.
I mean, I was down that basement 25 years ago, and it's still the same, and it still smells. There's no windows. It's dark. We had how many, air humidifier, air purifiers in the room, and they 3 or 4 of them
Could
going.
it be something like what we did with MSE with an addition?
So, so we're not gonna solve any of these problems tonight.
No,
Yep,
just asking high level, could it be?
I'm just saying, I agree with Rebecca.
It could-
It should be more than looking at the roof and the board.
Right,
Correct.
some degree of renovation, but I
I
also
don't
think
want to
if
keep
we
putting a
could do a
Band-Aid on
reno, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
I say, we can't keep putting a Band-Aid on it.
No.
You know, we did a lot of work on it since 2012 when you showed that list, but each one was a Band-Aid and it wasn't truly addressing the big picture issues that it's facing. It's a beautiful old building. And with any old building, it needs to be brought into the 21st century. Otherwise, we're going to constantly be placing a Band-Aid on there to fix the problems. So when we look at it, we need to look at it as a whole. You know, what do we need to do to make it so we're not having this discussion again in 5 years, 10 years from now, like we did before, 5, 10 years ago, before I got it, or 10 years before, it was 10 years ago, because before I was on the board, where we had the same discussion. We keep putting Band-Aids. We can't keep putting Band-Aids on it. It's not going to fix the issues. You know, if we want to keep it open, which we do because it's a beautiful community school where we have families that can walk and we can do the lunches and all that, the Band-Aid's it's not the solution. And that's the issue that we need to open our eyes to, is we can't keep putting a Band-Aid on it.
Can we consider, and again, I know nothing about building, but
Me
it seems like we renovated the high school and we didn't have to move the kids out, and that was, I mean, my wife lived through that, so I lived through that. And we also renovated Smithfield without moving the kids
And
out
MSC,
and
Correct.
MSC, so I
we
think
can
if
do it
could
in stages.
I think in stages, because otherwise, I mean, to say we're gonna renovate 2 years is 2 years out of an elementary kid's life, that you'd be moving again, we'd be talking about the same thing. So
And
if
we'll
we
have
can
the
look at
issues,
a
Mike,
rental project that can be done while
Mhm.
students are
Okay.
in the building safely, obviously.
An expansion can be
Maybe we
done.
can look at.
Yes.
And move them into it as they stand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And redistricting the rest of the district.
Yes.
Now, and then do each school separately
Mhm.
as we get, because of the financing.
I think, yeah, moving those
What
elementary.
does that mean? Do each school separately? Each school with what?
We have to, if we have to renovate, do renovations, or if we
Eventually.
say, okay, we're gonna merge the south. We're gonna merge, Jessica, go north, and then, Middle Smithfield goes south. We do that, we do the redistricting first, and then we.
only
make
10% of the kids, George, go south. 90% of them go north.
So it's really resting as the big.
Yeah.
And I guess, like you said, do we know if the parents even care about that? I mean, because, you know, they haven't been here.
Another option to serve, I know I'm throwing all these surveys at Dr. White here, but maybe we could talk to the teachers and the staff at Hill and get some ideas from them. I'm sure we have.
For improvements.
I mean, you know, I don't think that, my wife worked in the cafeteria, the food is not I don't think it's any different. Just because it comes from the South Heights, but it's not any different.
No,
And to go to that trouble to put a kitchen, that's been like that since how many years? 30, 40? Okay, so it hasn't affected the quality of the education. I wanna look at things that are gonna affect the quality of the education.
right.
The basement was my biggest concern.
Yes, the basement is the big.
Agree.
That building has a lot of character and a lot of.
Mhm.
It's beautiful.
We fixed the floors, we fixed electric, we've done a lot, and I'm sorry, Rebecca, I don't think they were Band-Aids. We did because we had to Band-Aid sounds like we just sugarcoated it. We put a lot of money into that building and darn, we need to keep it. And we can keep, if it needs a new roof, if it's cycle for a new roof, we have to get a new roof.
So,
I think the conversation of renovation, addition, replacement, I think that maybe might be a conversation for like,
Right, oh, no, yeah.
right,
Sorry.
like, and then we can really identify, go in and see what things are getting to do and.
Correct.
And then from there, present
Mhm.
to the
Yeah.
board.
and while
at that point.
I know we're not voting, and I'm not proposing we do,
Well, we can't.
can we leave this meeting at least, because that seems to be the biggest concern part of this whole project is JM Hill. So looking at each other and saying, whatever we're going to do, that there's a lot of things we have to do. It will not involve a closure of JM Hill. I think to walk out of the building tonight, at least
So we are not voting on anything.
not voting,
Not
not
turning
voting,
around.
but I think
However, I am hearing from each board member that we want to investigate what a staggered renovation with keeping the most amount of stability with the JM Hill community, what that would look like.
exactly.
So that's what you want me to explore.
Yeah.
Right, put it
I
this
mean,
way,
I'm myself, yes,
what we're discussing is, what do you want the option to vote on with
yes.
full information?
Yes, that's what we want.
And it seems quite clear to me that a substantial majority of the board is not interested in voting on options that include closing JM.
Correct.
Okay,
Simply, thank you.
perfect.
And I think another sense that I got was that we were not necessarily enamored with the idea of shipping kids from one end
Yeah.
to the other end.
Right.
And
We're not looking to have one high school.
We're not looking for consolidation of any school.
Right, but we need, recognizing we need to solve the problem in some way of the equity, but we don't want to solve it by closing the schools. And I don't think we're there yet. I mean, who knows what the future holds? If that school goes down to 500 and South goes up to 1400, obviously we're gonna have to take actions, but we're not there yet. And we may never get there, so. And that would be the whole redistricting, but I think if we could address through redistricting some of the concerns of the equity in North and South, that would be ideal too. And then Rich, sorry, Rich, as Rich says,
Senior
it's
moment.
senior moment. I turned 65 this month.
This week,
This week. And then maybe somehow come up with a creative way to have a magnet school, academy and, in what we have in there. So, yeah, I'm fairly comfortable with that. I think, but I agree with Keith. We had to have the larger discussion in order to get to this discussion.
This point, and
And,
got this.
And we also needed to, we had a new superintendent, a lot of new board members, and even those who were on the board previous were concerned with the lack of information that they had, and the transparency that they had before. So that was part of the reason why we all voted for the feasibility study, because we really wanted to know the truth of what was happening in the district. From enrollment to what our buildings look like, I mean, the whole 9 yards. So, I think we were trying to do that in the most transparent way possible. Also.
I think job well done, Dr.
thank you, Mr. Petrillo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we have the,
Do you have
Public
to-
comment.
anything?
That is all I had.
public input.
And now it is time for public comment, which hopefully has a positive flavor.
Are we gonna-
Go for it.
Laura, you're up first.
My hope is that you see this truly was the beginning stages. There was no predetermination. And you and I don't know each other well, but we will build trust over the years. We wanted to explore all options so we can never look back.
Hmm.
There was no grand cabal. There was no conspiracy that like everybody wants to close Hill. We wanted to explore everything.
Right.
So thank you.
And also the term, which no one in this room, but the backdoor deals. I wish I had the energy to do backdoor deals, because trust me, I do not have that good energy. Tara?
Thank you very much, Dr. Vitale, school board. You guys are a fantastic board. Just watching you all interact tonight It's really awesome, and I'm so glad you're all sitting in the seats that you're in. And let me remind anyone that doesn't know that out of 500 school districts, East Stroudsburg was the least funded. We were number 500. Your inequity was $57 million. And since I got into office in 2023, we have bridged that gap, and we will continue to fund you. I know you're number one, you got an additional 9.5 million, I think then another 6, and this is all stacked. So we're gonna keep fighting to get East Stroudsburg whole again, since you have been screwed for the past 2 years. You can count on that from me.
Thank you.
The one person who, who actually cares about public education in this area. I have a couple questions for you. Jane Mill School. I think you'd be hard pressed to say that any of your new buildings probably have had more maintenance than Jane Mill School. And it's a fact in Stroudsburg, those old schools, they were built to last. There's more fixes in the newer schools and more maintenance in the newer schools than there are on any of the old buildings. And so when you say that, like, oh, it needs to be torn down, I 100% disagree with you. I really would like to know the numbers on what you put in newer schools maintenance wise versus a Smithfield versus a J.M. Hill school. So I would like to know those numbers. For $25 million for a renovation of J.M. Hill, that seems really, really out of control and out of touch. So I don't know where that 25 million would be spent. But the good news is for school districts, you can apply for grants for construction, and I will fund you. So if you put in for these construction things that you need, which you could never do before, I will help take that burden off the taxpayers. I will continue to do that. Don't even hesitate to ask, email me questions. I will get you over every single grant that can help. You could never do that before, now you can. Pike County, the last time I was within a Pike County group, they lost 9% of their young people. They are growing, but it's more, 50 plus. What's the numbers of North when they opened versus now? What is the projection of Pike County for younger families and younger kids? I think that's important to look at in a feasibility study. Also, sorry, you guys, you had me taking so many notes. And also Pike County now, they just got a grant to do a feasibility study, which they really think is going to happen for a career and technical school up in Wayne County. So it'd be like Western Wayne, Wayne Highlands, that they were saying East Stroudsburg North could opt into that. That was what their whole big meeting was about. So there is going to be another career and technical institute coming to Pike County, which might take away, if it's closer, they might be able to get back to school in time, is my point, because that's a problem with the bus ride there. My time is almost up. I had so much, but anyway, I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you for keeping the J.M. Hill open. And J.M. Hill Jaguars, 1981, we named the mascot. I was in 5th grade, we named that mascot, so thank you.
We explored the Pike Wayne CTC program. We've had lots of meetings about it. We went up, we toured, we spent some time in Wallenpaupack School District. Dr. Ganuski up there is really leading the charge with this.
Yeah.
It was a heavy lift. It was $10 million to just get into it. And then it added roughly $700,000 a year. And the reality is it's 5 minutes closer.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. So again, I want all options. So keep bringing options to us. But it was something we went down that road for exploration. If only. Yep.
Oh, Bob? So here, look at the
Just want to get a bit closer to the mic sources over there right now.
A lot of topics discussed. It was a very informative meeting. A couple things on class size. Just remember that you have 16 and 24, the average is 20. And then when you have the special, these kids in the classroom, that changes a lot. As far as the budget, good luck with that. It's always a tough. But as far as the central bus compound, I know that was looked at briefly, but I still think you should look at something there for central bus compound.
But getting into the J&L, thank you for that tonight, but I think the options of not being open and some transparency. And tonight's presentation, there's some misleading figures and facts. And the biggest one was J&L projects that totaled $3.9 million. The 2012, 2013 numbers really shouldn't be there. That was 9 years ago, a while ago, and should not be there just because of that number. If you take that out, it's only $700,000. The other districts, while going through the workshops since 2021, the other 4 or 5 elementary schools have over $15 million in, and they're big projects. That's not the sidewalks, that's not parking lots, that's not, you know, classrooms, minor classroom renovations. So when you do that, that's huge numbers. And if you go back to 2012, like the other ones, it's over $30 million that to put in these schools, the elementary alone. You put in the high school, we're talking, you know, this school was $90 million. ESASD was 35 million. I mean, there's been a lot of money put in the other schools at the at J&L's problems. It's like the VES had over 5 million since 21, ESD over 5.6 since 24 to 25. Smithfield over 2 million, Bressfield 1.5, not including the new problems with the water and some other issues. So that's going to be addressed. J&L is a great school. You know, the foundation is there. It shouldn't be considered removed. You know, talk to the teachers who've been there and tell them what really needed. You know, not every classroom needs a sink. You know, you go to some of the classroom sinks, you know, a lot of teachers are washing, you know, they're walking out, you'll find. And so again, for some of these projects, it doesn't need all the bells and whistles. J&L does work. We're producing great kids, you know, as you know, from a lot of your kids who graduated here. So in closing, you know, if you look at money, you look at some savings there, and I think you can take care of that. And the equity, again, is important because if you look at the equity, which you talked about earlier, it's not there in putting money in the JML. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Karen?
Hey, everyone. I just want to thank you guys for having another one of these work sessions. Hear what's going on and state our opinion. Some things that have come up with this. First of all, this feasibility study. In my 25 years of journalism, I've never seen a more disengaging and boring subject line in my entire life. One of the things that was mentioned was how everyone reacted to the Bell study. And yet I think what they think the architect said in the town hall was like only like 170 something families responded to the feasibility study. I bet we had something like redistricting options, changes to the district or something more along those lines, you probably would have seen a higher number. I mean, that was a snooze fest, and I can tell you the first time I went around, I almost didn't even click on it because I was like, what's this? You might want to look into that going forward with anything else you do, is having something that not to be snazzy, not to be clickbait, but also says a little bit clearly what your intentions are as you go, as someone were to click it and participate. I know you were only interested in educators, but I can tell you, I had a lot of taxpayers who no longer have children in the district that were disappointed that they were not able to participate, particularly those who live in the borough where I do, because they are very invested in what happens to J&L and the district because that affects taxes and property value. So while they may not have learners in the district, that doesn't mean that their opinions don't carry value because they're going to want to see changes that are going to improve their property value, not increase it. Because Route 80 can only carry us in the borough for so far. The other thing is this option E, as you move forward with this, when it talks about creating a magnet school or some sort of academy at JTL, what's not mentioned is the fact that JTL would need renovations for that. As someone who danced competitively, that's not a performing arts school. As someone who lived through her own high school in 1995, going through renovations for a science lab, that is not a STEM school. That is a general education school. So if that's something you're truly interested in, no matter what other options are on the table, they gave you numbers, the company, in terms of reno or new built for J&L, you need to see numbers for JTL. You need to. And quite frankly, I don't know why you guys did not receive that 2,000 page report.
200, sorry.
Whatever it was before December. You should have had it before their presentation here. So you could have looked at it. It might be time to break up with them. Because I believe you said in the town hall, they had no skin in the game, that you're not required to go with them. If should you move forward with any kind of options, you could pick any other company in terms of renovations or whatever it is. And you might want to consider that because as a board member, I would have wanted to see that before I got that little power report number. I definitely would have wanted to know what was in that report before I went to a town hall, because then maybe you could have actually answered questions at the town hall, because you would have had more information than what we all got was this. So something to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
See ya. Sure.
Hello, I wanted to just point out a few things, which after hearing you guys talk about your kind of stances now, this may not be as important, but the options D and E, when presented in January, the capacity numbers for what would be the middle school at North Neiman and the high school. The capacity did not fit the enrollment that would be, which we know was 80% of the plan cut numbers. Then in January, that capacity magically increased to 95% of that plan cut number to make the enrollment fit. So that was something I wanted to bring up, but may not be a directional heading. Bring up why did we switch from K through 5 to K through 4, and that would then put the intermediate school over capacity. So tonight, I want to say thank you for listening to what the public has input, and sounds like we're heading in the direction that everybody feels a little bit more comfortable about. So I look forward to see where this goes.
Thank you, Rick. Next. Asia, let's say that. Okay. And Wayne? Oh,
Good. Oh, I'm up.
You're up. She.
Want to stay seated? Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Wayne Runner. I'm class of 1980. I just want to give us all a brief history. It was refreshing to hear you all speak about student performance for the first time. That was really not a subject that we discussed at the last town hall. Whatever decision you make, I'll support it. You know, the Bushgill, I did a lot of research. The Bushgill elementary school that I went to was actually a Bushgill high school. So the school district, like Maggie was saying in the beginning, has evolved over the years. So there was a Bushgill high school and there was the Bonnell High School. So, you know, for instance, my mother went to J.M. Hill for intermediate school, as did your father-in-law. And then went to the Bonnell for high school. The Bonnell school for me was 7th and 8th grade. This here's my high school. So I'm always advocating for the North community because we are fully aware of the inequity of opportunities that exist between the North and the South. So I will always support one high school for that reason. I'm glad Jason brought up the field hockey team. I went to the December 19th Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We honored Marissa Merrill. She was one of my little league baseball players. And I think she graduated in 2012. And I didn't realize until I went to the induction ceremony that she actually had an opportunity to participate for the Puerto Rican field hockey team in the Olympics. So I am interested in that one student being bused down south to participate in field hockey. And I'm interested in the North students having an opportunity. We have many families that could travel with the Travelers across the globe, but we don't have that opportunity. So I'm going to always fight and advocate for the North students because there are greater opportunities for the students if we had one high school. With respect, and there was discussion on transportation, you know, the history for Bushgill residents, and I did research on Facebook posts, you know, that we have students from the 60s and 70s that had a 2-hour bus ride if they were doing extracurricular activities. I'm one of those students, along with my sister Jackie, who would get home after 9 p.m. from you know, athletic events and then have to do homework. So that's our reality because we are a rural school district. So, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to thinking outside the box and for students, if we were to realign, that wouldn't upset me, but whatever the decision is, I'm not gonna, my time up.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the, Bushkill used to have a bus that would go up 209 Bristol Mountain down to 01. And it'd be kindergarten to 12, and then at the blinking light, they would then discharge. One bus would be grade school, go to Middle Smithfield, the other bus would fill up and go to the high school here. So, you know, we no longer have a Bonnell High School, we no longer have a Bushkill High School. The point is that this school district has always adapted, like we mentioned. So, you know, travel times, yeah, my bus ride is an hour every day. That's the reality. For those that live at Mock Farms, yeah, it's much larger, longer than that, but again, we didn't quibble over it, we did it. That's what life was. So, you know, I'm just thrilled to hear you guys talk about the North students and, you know, the equity has to be addressed. There, in my opinion, there is no commitment or dedication for stability. And certainly I'm gonna continue to advocate for that. You know, my son started at Bushkill at 2000, graduated in 2013. He was the first class to start and end. My cousin Billy Hazel was inducted into the Hall of Fame that night also. You know, if you go to one high school, we don't erase our history, our past. You know, their legacy will continue, whether it's a Timberwolf or as a Cavalier. You know, Mr. Colin was inducted. He's one of my teachers. You know, I think fondly, I always tell George, I had a great experience in this school district my entire time, K to 12.
And that I think is the important part that we do. And I think the history, it is worth hearing the history because we're all part of that, whether you're north or south, the great history of our district. And, you know, I hope we all leave tonight, you know, and we disagree on a few points here and there, but the point that has always been important to me when I ran for the board was that we all work together. And we're going to disagree at times, but ultimately, I think we saw a good example of us listening, working together, and that's what we want to continue doing with my fellow board members. So I thank my board member, I thank our superintendent, but mostly, you know, definitely our parents who and taxpayers who, you know, this is one team. We're not an us and them. We are one team because there's enough us and thems in the world. We want to be together on the team. So, I'm sorry, did we do any online people? I didn't want to leave off. No? Steve?
Can I go real quick?
Absolutely.
I want to say, Debbie, is it your birthday today? Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Deb.
And I want to say to the board, my name is Steve Ertl. Maggie and to everybody, thank you so much to Matt Triola, who put out a second chance breakfast. I think that's an amazing idea. It really was something my daughters told me about. You know, having that breakfast second chance between homeroom and first is really something that should be adapted for all the schools. Getting the food out to the kids is so important. Again, I want to thank Tara Flake in the room. Why? Because I do know her passion for education, and I'm very happy she's up at Harrisburg getting the money that we need back. Again, she is right. East Stroudsburg and all of our schools have not gotten their fair share. I will say, I do agree with person back there, the chart that you have, I felt like this first report was basically showing how to move jelly beans from this jar to that jar. I wait the new report, which actually has numbers. I'm one of the few people in the room that has actually worked on multi-million-dollar projects, both old and new. And guess what? If you do have old bones, you can do something amazing with it. So with the J.M. Hill School, I would look out of the box, look at options. Again, Ramsey, right? Tara worked on that for a while, and that place has good bones, and they're very successful now with the schools that they put in. So here's an idea. MCTI. So over 500 kids in the district that would love to be in MCTI, some type of technical school, but they do not have the means or the access to get there. Why not look at making this school an MCTI other school? Why not have the students join in and actually help with demoing the walls? I've done it. How great would it be to actually go to the school and say, yes, I took part in helping bring down the cost to the taxpayers, but the skills we're learning actually took millions off of that $24 million budget. And I will tell you, go get your quotes, go get your bids. That's what everybody does in the real world. But I will tell you this, in this type of environment, your costs will go up. It does take 2+ years. And those costs go through the roof. The Smithfield Gateway project took over 7 years just to get metal in the ground. As I watched the Naples build the casino and they came over and ate at a restaurant every day, I know what they went through too. It takes time. But as it takes time, your costs do go up. So we have to be very careful on what we're spending our money on. The other thing is, again, if you do have 2 students up at North, please put them on a Zoom, get those AP courses, give them a chance. I know it's not the right environment with the teacher, but don't let those kids not have the same chance as the South. Give them that opportunity. So I would say with the technology, use it. And finally, wrapping up, let's focus on this budget. Kara's doing all she can to bring money down here, but right now you guys are gonna bleed out in 1.5 years from the funds that you have, from what I've calculated. I may be wrong, I may be right, but I think the numbers I've been working on is through a meeting. You're whittling down your savings account. How are we gonna build $24 million in new stuff? So those are just some points, but again, I love the fact, work together, be open for new ideas, and yes, try to save that JM Hill. I think it is the diamond that should be saved.
Thanks, Steve.
We need growth.
Well,
That's key.
okay. I guess we just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
So-
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
I wouldn't even ask for opposed.